Hi. This video, this particular Keeper's Notes, is a little hard for me to share. Not because I don't want to, but because it's about preparation. And so what little preparation there actually is, well, for any of the players in the campaign that come across this, there is the potential to damage their experience. Not really talking about spoilers, because that's tied very much to things like a planned or intentional story, or some kind of arc of travel, or some kind of awareness or preparation for a grand revelation, or a timed series of all of these things that just simply aren't happening in this campaign. So I don't have like a GM's journal to show. I don't have a log of detailed sequences of events. I don't have a lot of that kind of stuff. So to avoid revealing, let's say, secrets, this video is difficult to make. And to figure out a way to usefully communicate what the preparation actually is a little challenging, but let's give it a try. So anyone who's watched this channel for a while, or listened to the podcast for a while, will have probably come across my phrase, preparation for improvisation. So there are some ways to play where the game master and the players, other than the players making their characters and the group choosing a game or system or something along those lines, really there's no preparation, and everything is improvised in the moment. So there's in a sense, there's an enjoyable and constant state of surprise. Everyone, hopefully, will be engaged enjoyably in listening to each other and working with and around, and, in a correctly playful way, let's say, against each other, pushing and pulling with the details of play, and to eventually arrive at something. Right? Just wing it. Right? So the players in role-playing games are, in the majority of situations, they always get to play that way. Game masters, however, it's more of a choice. You could choose to play that way, or you could lovingly craft some kind of, adventure path, or some one-shot, or a series of linked adventures, and you could produce a bunch of handouts and clues, and everything interconnects, and you've got a bunch of clues that all point in the same direction around, challenges of varying difficulties to ensure that, we can follow the breadcrumbs and wind up at some kind of satisfying conclusion for the group, all this sort of stuff. But that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is preparation for improvisation. Well, what does that even mean? The preparation part comes in trying to increase my familiarity and comfort with inhabiting the NPC roles that are active. So in the case of the first branch of the Turn of a New Leaf campaign, for the very first session, that pretty much was restricted to Edward Driscoll, confidential investigator. I knew we only had like 90 minutes to play. The first situation presented was right outside Eddie's office. It's possible that Ivan's character could have wandered off somewhere else, and then I would have been in more purely improvised territory in terms of character. But if he went into the office where Eddie was, then we would be able to interact, right? And I wanted to be able to interact as Eddie in a meaningful way. So what does this mean? Does this mean like writing out a script for Eddie, or giving him an agenda, or things that he must accomplish in this scene? No, because I only tend to think of things as scenes after the fact. Like when I watch them back on video and we have a moment with a clear beginning and a middle and an ending in a location, I will tend to describe that as a scene, but in the moment, it's just the moment. So with the NPCs that I produce, what I like to do is figure out how they talk to their contacts. And I think about things like respect, right? If there's a character in the room that they respect, how does this change their demeanor? And by respect, we could mean, actual respect, or we could mean fear, right? They're intimidated by that person, or they're somehow under that person's thumb. How does their demeanor change? Is this someone that they intimidate, that they have put under their thumb, that they have their hooks in, they're blackmailing or whatever? How does this change their demeanor? I think about things like that. I consider if this character becomes happy, sad, afraid, or whatever, if their emotional state changes, will this have much effect on how they speak? And so then I like to imagine pretty mundane, non-gameable situations where characters interact. And so I get to practice my conception of one NPC interacting with another NPC, which is a situation that I really don't ever want to have happen if I can avoid it in play. Of course, it does, and so it's good practice there too. So preparation for improvisation. Nothing's scripted out, nothing's written down, but I have given myself the opportunity on my long commutes, or when I'm out walking the dogs, or taking care of the yard, or whatever it is that my physical form is doing something mundane and my mind is free, and I'm not being paid to do, pay attention to something else. If I can pay attention to what I want, then I can run these situations through and, think about what is Eddie Driscoll like. Now, sometimes this preparation for improvisation pays off in surprising ways, like in the second thread with Agent Thornton, his direct supervisor, Bill Rainier. I had done all this due diligence. I had occupied Bill Rainier's perspective. I'd thought about, where he came from and how he liked to talk, and I had a very clear picture of his office and the stacks of paper around him, and his home life, and the way he thinks about his children and his wife. I'd gone through all these things, and the more I occupied his mind, the more I felt like he was a really interesting mirror reflection of Agent Thornton. Where Eddie Driscoll and Terrence McSweeney, the reporter, played by Ivan Mike, are two peas in a pod, Bill Rainier and Alex Thornton are opposites in the sense of opposites attracting. These men are good friends. They are drawn to the same type of work. They have a similar attitude toward work and toward the subject of their work. But they had made completely different choices in life. However, when it came time to actually interact as Bill Rainier for the first time, he came out completely differently. And I think that had I not taken the time to imagine Bill Rainier in his office and imagine all of the the trappings of that lifestyle as, the local supervisor of the Prohibition Bureau in our fictional Boston. If I hadn't taken the time to do that, then that might have thrown me for a bit. I would have been trying to figure out who is this guy and how will I interact as this character, right? In character, as the character. How will I interact as this character, seeing through their eyes? Right. So if I hadn't grounded myself in place, I may have been lost, or I may have wanted to throw off this character as soon as possible and go back to interacting directly as Alex's senses, his window into the world around him. That's the other aspect of preparation for improvisation. It's not just characters. The world surrounds everything that you are imagining in terms of action, reaction, and interaction, right? Presumably, you have created an NPC who, from the PC's point of view, is up to no good. What are they doing? What is it that they want to accomplish? How likely are they to be able to, move toward their goal tonight, right? Or today? Do they have the resources that they need? Do they have the right assistance? What is it that they have to do is the next step to achieve their aims? You play them very much like you play a PC, right? What do I want to do? What am I here for? What is my, what's my motivation? All of these things take place in the setting. Well, we could look at a setting as a very real place, and you might play with a map. And, in some situations, you're lucky enough to have a map that has individual buildings labeled, and you can make notes and know what everything is, what every business is, and everything's, staffed with NPCs. It doesn't matter where anybody goes, you're prepared. This removes much of the need for improvisation, where improvisation comes in that regard then is, how are you going to portray that particular NPC in that particular numbered building on that particular map? But what I am doing with Boston as the keeper of arcane lore is focusing more on the feel of Boston. All of my players in the original branch of the campaign had been there. So they have actual memories of the place. So instead of focusing on showing them verbally what Boston looks like in 1931, I can instead focus on how Boston feels different, how things have changed. I can focus on the mood of the place. I can focus on the looks on people's faces. I can focus on the actions, reactions, and interactions of people in the street. The descriptions of Boston, the locations of Boston, can take care of themselves in the imaginations of the players. As this expanded, that quality, that particular quality of people having been there, people having looked into what Boston is like now and then, people tying their characters to physical locations and occupations, and, well, that continued. And so there is, again, no need for me to build descriptive frameworks for them to operate within. I don't need to learn the names of all the streets, for example. If we were going for historical accuracy, I would. If we were going for geographical accuracy, I would. But here we're going for the experience of horror. And so in a sense, allowing this to be fuzzy in terms of what we're saying to each other, and allowing this to reside wholly in the imagination, where details come out when they are specifically necessary, where they're important for what I'm trying to communicate, or they're important from what a character, a player is trying to communicate about their character, or where their character is, or where their character is going. Then these things take on a sharp focus, and we're going to have to travel through this sense of atmosphere, this sense of mood, this sense of hesitation or fear about how this thing that we expect, this thing that we think Boston is like, is going to be in some way different. And we know why it's different. And that is our link to horror. Now, there are currently 4 branches in this campaign, all in and around the same dates, all to one degree or another connected to elements of things that have happened. There have been crossovers. Characters have passed, within hours of each other through the same locations. Characters have met NPCs, moments or days apart. They have been conducting their independent journeys through time and space with this sense of, this ephemeral sense of connection. Are they investigating the same thing? Are they investigating? How does the sense of mystery, how do the events that surround them tie to their growing motivations and their growing reactions and their growing horror over what their life is now, the experience of the character. Now, all of these different yet related timelines, it's all occurring in the same campaign. It's all occurring in the same universe, in the same world, in the same setting, around the same time. How do you handle that? Well, that's been the most fun, because of course I start out with nothing. And so I made 7 squares. That's week 1. I found the actual calendar of 1931, and I found November, and much to my own amusement, discovered that there was a Friday the 13th in November of 1931. So then, Terrence McSweeney takes the first actions in the campaign in terms of the real world, and as a player, he's the first person to play in the campaign. He might not be the person to start the earliest in the timeline, but that's one of those things that needs to remain ambiguous and obscure for right now. So I place a note that this is the start of Terrence on the right day on the calendar. And then I simply track the time. When did he and Callum McInnes go to that specific warehouse in session number 2? What day was that? What time was that? When did they meet Smalls on Newberry Street? What time was that? Right. So we're just simply following. So my calendar, which is slowly filling out into its second week, my calendar is essentially empty in the future. And there are some things that have been filled in the past, like the events of 1923 and 1924, and how those tie into the Hermetic Order of the Silver Twilight and the Shadows of Yog-Sothoth campaign that we are not playing, but we are honoring its existence by, connecting with some of those locations and things in play. Although all changed. The timeline then is up to date for all of the NPC characters. Where is Lieutenant Gabriel Washburn at this particular moment? It will either be something that I've already played him, and so I've made a note that this happened at this time in this place, right, on this day. So I can look down at my calendar and see, where is Gabriel Washburn in this moment? Or if we're on a day when nothing has been filled in, then I'm free to interpret where Washburn is and what he's doing, and then it will become set. So looking back is a lot easier than looking forward. Where should Washburn be? Where should Xavier Morgan be? What is Xavier Morgan's step, toward his goal on this particular day? Now, I have a very clear intention for the villain or villains of the piece, and there are more than one, and what it is that they need to do. And they are as subject to the rules of the game and the influence of the dice as any of the player characters. So when they need to act, and this is largely considered out of game, when they need to act, then I get the dice, I get their character sheets, and we determine what it is that they need to do, whether that's worthy of a roll. If it's worthy of a roll, then a roll is made, and how long it should take. All of these things are assessed, and that will be applied to the calendar. The last element for all of this is the character sheets. Before play, I had everyone create their characters or choose a pre-gen. Doesn't really matter which. When we met for the first time, we talked about what the character sheet was telling us about the strengths and weaknesses, the limitations, the boundaries of the character. And we have recorded those and we shared them. That's another part of preparation for improvisation. Who do we think these characters are? What do we think that they want? And do we have some common ground in our perception of who they are? Are we ready for them? Right? What voice do they speak in? And why are they moving about in this world? We want to get a sense of that. And then in play, I'm prepared by having the character sheets on my tablet. So I can look to the side, I can take a look, I can zoom in on whatever trait I might need, and we can make an assessment in the moment about, do we need a roll? Is this character trying to do something that they are actually skilled in, or is this something that's going to be challenging from the outset because they really don't know how to begin? What should NPC reactions be to this character? I can take a look at their traits, their strength, their appearance, to get a sense of the look of intelligence in their eyes. Right? What kind of situations are they more comfortable in relating to their skills, less comfortable in relating to their skills, and of course keeping the credit rating always in mind. How socially capable and competent do they seem? So, with that in mind, the player has a clear imagination of who they're playing. I have a clear imagination of who they're playing. We have found some common ground about who they're playing. And so in the end, we don't need to talk about it very much. We could talk about it if we choose, but it's much more important how the character is acting, reacting, and interacting. We don't need to spend as much time talking about what the character looks like while they're doing it. That's going to be taking place in our imaginations, either automatically, because that's the way we play, or with some control, with some intention. I'm going to choose to imagine it or choose not to imagine it. Or some players don't imagine it at all. But what remains true, what remains relatable, what remains understandable is what people are doing, what people are saying. And how we choose, if we choose to imagine it at all, is left to our own personal senses. So, as the keeper, as the game master in this situation, I want this Boston, this time period, this place, and these events to suggest that mood of horror, the particular themes of this campaign. It has a feeling. It has a pressure. It has a pace and a timing to it. The motivations of the characters are theirs alone, because there is no story that they're following. There's no breadcrumb trail that they are following. They are living in this place. They're having experiences, and those experiences are influencing their choices. And I will be choosing to make actions as NPCs. I'll be forced into making reactions because of player action. And of course, through it all, we'll be interacting. And this is the heart of preparation for improvisation. Do I know the characters that I'm going to be playing as the game master? Do I know my character as a player? When we meet, are we comfortable and are we able to interact with each other as the character? When we walk into a place, do we feel comfortable imagining it so we can seamlessly see it through our character's eyes? Do I, as the keeper, can I slip into and join with that imagination and provide essential details that the character will glean through their senses about the person that they're talking to, because of the skills that they have, because of the attributes that they have, about the place that they're in for those same reasons? Can I communicate the mood, the atmosphere, the essential details of place and time, the essential details of character? Well, hopefully, sometimes I can. And in video review, we can work toward matching preferences with the people that we're playing with, and of course, improving our skills to our own satisfaction. But this is not in a nutshell, a 30-minute nutshell, an overview of preparation. It's character sheets, and it's notes about what has taken place written out on a calendar, because we have these interweaving timelines and we need to know where these characters are at certain periods of time. And it's these videos, the record of play, the actual play, with their annotations and the discussions beforehand and afterward. How do you prepare? How do these preparations I've described strike you? Comment section is open. Let's talk. Anyway, until the next time, take care.
Imagine a life of satisfaction.